What's going on, people? Myke C-Town here with another episode of The Playlist, where I pick 4 albums that I've listened to lately and give kind of mini reviews on them. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into this. The first album I'm talking about today is the newest album from Brzowski and C Money Burns called The Subjugation of Bread. So Brzowski's a Maine-based rapper that's been putting out revolutionary hip-hop for some time now. I can't remember how I discovered him though, you know, old age and such, everything kind of just blends together. C Money Burns is a producer who's worked with quite a few rappers that I like, but I believe I got put onto him through Uncommon NASA some years ago. Then someone, I can't remember who, sent me the collaborative album Vinyl Cape, which is this kind of hip-hop and metal kind of amalgamation album that C Money Burns and Brzezowski were a part of. It's a great record. I've shown it on my vinyl updates, but yeah, these guys have worked together before in the hip-hop spectrum, but this is the first album that they've done in a few years, and the first track, Darwin's Liquor Cabinet, I immediately got sucked in by the production. The beat is just amazing. The string sounds, the clean drums, and Brzezowski sounds fantastic over it. His rap style is very reminiscent of the glory days of Mannequin. You know, you can tell that he's a student of that school, and he has the kind of off-kilter rap style of someone like Soul, but a bit more pissed off, like an Immortal Technique, and he has this gruff-ass voice that occasionally reminds me of Buck 65. Red Lanterns is the next song, and it really gives you an idea of what you're in for with this album. You know, the layered beats with a rapper who's wordy and is putting his political stance on display. Some real communist vibes here. The content is a sort of call to those who care to step up to the plate to secure a better future for humanity, which is something that I can definitely get behind, and it certainly helps that it's done by a rapper who has such a unique style. I really like the line where he says, "The gods are at a discount, the devil's in demand." Not intentionally going in order, but Artificial Gray is a nice one. The sample here almost sounds like it was pulled from a John Carpenter movie, but the upbeat drums give it a completely different life. This one features Alaska, classic Addams Family alum, and it finds them both painting a picture of a world too fucked up for those with a conscience to be living in. Brzezowski says, "It's mostly the stink and the noxious clouds, 5-spot for H2O to soothe the throat, metronome is pacemaker while the organs corrode, middle management is actually a smartphone." And Alaska has some nice lines too. He says, "You don't like science, you can cry out it's a hoax. Listen, bloke, it's a great time to be a misanthrope." And I also like when he said, "Politicians suck, even your savior does. Nobody can save us. The checks are cashed, the graves are dug." Drugs Still Work is probably my favorite song on here. The almost rock sounding backdrop, the guitars on here sound great. They're subtle, but they add just enough flavor. And it gives off this idea that people are taking drugs as a way to cope with the shit show that we're all living in. I realize chemicals help you forget stuff. That's the reason respectables still ingest drugs, to numb the disappointment of sub-average existence. I think that sums things up quite nicely, and the hook is just great. It's a clear nod to Peter Steele, at least to me it was. The deep goth vocals with the snarky lyrics really gave me that feeling, and it's just great. Kerosene Throne is a great closer. The backdrop is really dark and melancholic, and it gives the perfect sound for Brzezowski to paint this kind of bleak picture of our world. And it has a nice Danzig reference in there. See if you can spot it. But overall, this is a great record, especially if you find yourself pissed off at the current state of affairs and you want your music to reflect that. You know, this is the sound of hip-hop with the attitude of punk rock, which that statement would a lot of times equate to something that's a bit difficult to categorize as hip-hop, but that's not the case here. You know, these guys keep it patently hip-hop with intricate beats and rhymes full of punch and complex wordplay. You know, these guys, they really make a great matchup, and a lot of that is due to C Money Burns and how he knows how to put just enough light into his beats to keep this from being an absolute sad bastard fest, even though that would be perfectly fine to me. But at any rate, this is definitely something that you guys should check out. Moving right along, the next album I'm going to talk about is Katy Perry's Smile. Everyone knows I love me some Katy Perry. You know, I listen to a lot of dark music, and she offers a balance to that, you know, an alternative to the sad and angry music that I normally listen to. And this year brings her newest album, Smile. And it starts off with the song Never Really Over, which dropped as a single a while back. And I liked it when it came out, you know. It has the sound that I typically like from Katy Perry. It's dancey and it's fun sounding. The hard bass sound with the kind of electro overlays. It's good stuff, you know? I never really thought too hard about the lyrics until the album came out, but she seems to be talking about a failed relationship and the prospect of rekindling that relationship regardless of how toxic it might be. Cry About It Later is a bit of a weird song, but I like the beat a lot. It's got some hard bass sounds and it's nicely layered, and she sounds fine here. You know, the issue for me with this song came from the lyrics. You know, Katy Perry lyrics are usually pretty goofy, but the whole going to the club to get drunk to get over a breakup was a bit off sounding for me. But now Daisies is a great song. The production is rather derivative. It's nothing special, but I feel like it works. But I actually like the lyrics here. They told me I was out there, tried to knock me down, took those sticks and stones, showed them I could build a house. They tell me that I'm crazy, but I'll never let them change me till they cover me in daisies. Katy's always had these kind of self-empowerment jams, but they're typically a bit lighter and maybe a little more fun sounding. This one was more serious and sentimental sounding, which is okay, but it's not necessarily what I look for with her. But I still did like this song. But then you have songs like Resilient and Not the End of the World, which didn't really work for me. Like, she's being a bit too serious and it's way too hard to take her seriously. You know, Resilient is a bit boring production wise and she's not doing anything cool with her vocals. Her voice still sounds good, but she doesn't really sound that interested in singing this song. Felt the same way about Not the End of the World. You know, boring production and her vocals are really uninteresting. The title track, Smile, kind of brings it back, but it's still not quite there. It's upbeat and kind of fun, but still, it's a bit too mature. And I definitely could have done without Diddy doing this corny Kanye West cosplay. The song Tucked brings it back to the Katy Perry that I like. The fun, upbeat dance track, and Katy sounds fun. She sounds light and poppy, which is a sound that I look for with her. The production has this almost disco kind of sound with these sweeping synths and electronic drums. I think the song is just great, and I wish there was more of this on this album. So yeah, for the most part, this album isn't great to me. It may sound disrespectful, but honestly, I simply don't want super serious albums from Katy Perry. I don't mind a song or two here and there, but damn near a whole album, nah. Now, I'm just a guy who happens to find some fun and enjoyment out of her music, but I understand that it's not actually made for me. So if young girls are getting some real strength and empowerment from this, then that's great. But I'll take Teenage Dream or One of the Boys any day. The next album we're going to talk about is Manikineter's Copper Fields. Manikineter is the project of Carl Kevorkian, who's been creating noisy and abrasive hip-hop out of Philly for many years now. But as his career goes on, he gets noisier and more abrasive with every album, and each one seeming to pull back more on the hip-hop and lean more into the noise. When I saw him perform last year at the Mood House Fest that I hosted, he was one of my favorite performances, and his set made me really curious to see what he was going to do next. And holy shit, this album. When it gets going with Bait and Switch, this noisy and buzzed out backdrop with a nice break beat, then Carl comes in rapping with this sort of drowned out effect on his vocals, which goes perfectly with the beat. But the screams that he's incorporating here, they sound perfect. When he's screaming and bones will break like promises, it sounds amazing. The song after that, Your Account Is Past Due, is probably my favorite song on here. It's a song he released a video for, but it's really harsh and nasty sounding, and I really like the lyrics on this one. Serpents of circuits, circling servants, serving disservice, pushing a purchase, vultures of purpose. I feel like it's a critique on capitalism and this idea of people giving in to the temptation of materialism. Welcome to the World is fantastic. It's this nasty wall of noise that has this swelling and pulsing going on, and Carl laying down these absolutely inhuman screams. It's such a fucking terrifying moment on this album. And I really like 53 Card Pickup. It's still noisy, but a bit less abrasive than the other songs. And I think perhaps he pulled back slightly on the noise here so the words could more easily be made out. This one seems to be an anthem of sorts inspired by the protests that have been going on as of late, as well as a sort of condemnation of people promoting this system of inequality. The line, "Slit your throat with that race card," really hits. Overall, this is some of the best stuff that I've heard all year. There's some real passion and darkness flowing through this album. The production is extremely noisy and nasty, but it's also layered and detailed, you know? It's not all just wall of sound noise. There's definitely some of that on here as well, but a lot of it really has some musicality to it. You know, definitely something to check out if you're a fan of noise rap like Moody Black, Dialect, Death Grips, Blackie. And the last record I'm going to talk about today is Chambre Froide, Puissance de Vide, Triomphe de Mort. Chambre Froide is a one-man black metal band out of France. In fact, it's one of my favorite current black metal bands creating music right now. Their album, Rouge Chapelles, was one of my favorite albums to drop in 2016. And this is the first bit of music that we've gotten from Chambre Froide since that album, and it comes in the form of a 3-song EP. The first song, Division Freud, starts off with this horror movie soundtrack kind of synth sound before breaking into this driving, nasty part with these glorious keys over it. And when the vocals come in, it really takes life. You know, his gravelly voice blends so well with the music. The great thing is, this isn't just noisy black metal. There are some great riffs here. The bridge that comes in after the first verse, it gets in my head every time, and it makes me want to break shit. And about 3/4 of the way through the song, after a really short break, it just erupts into this monstrous blasting part that just kills. The second song, which is the title track, doesn't waste any time getting right into it. It's this fast blasting part that reminds me of Panzerfaust era Darkthrone, and at about the halfway point of the song, it breaks into this almost moshy part, you know? But it's still dark, it's still black metal, and the way he's able to seamlessly transition that same riff into a faster tempo and then bring the blast beats in, it's amazing. The third and final track is more blazing fast nastiness, starting right off with the fast blast beat part with this fantastic driving riff. And again, those vocals are disgusting. There's a part at about 2 minutes in that's one of my favorite moments on this EP. It almost sounds like a breakdown that a hardcore band would do, like something that I may hear Integrity or Gehenna put into a song, but it works so well here. One thing I've always enjoyed about this band is the fact that he's able to do these fast, nasty parts and slower parts equally well. And while they're fast most of the time, he knows just when to throw in a good, slow, kind of doomy part. And he uses these parts very sparingly. And the part at the end of the third song is one of those pieces that I'm talking about. It's slow, it's evil, it's nasty sounding, and it's the perfect way to close this EP out. Overall, my only gripe here is that this shit is too short. I love this band. They just have such a great sound when it comes to nasty, crusty, gross black metal. And this EP is fantastic. It's a great follow-up to their last album. Definitely one of the best things I've heard this year in terms of black metal. So if you're into that, I highly suggest you give this a listen. So that's going to do it for this episode of The Playlist. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys are listening to right now. Drop some comments down there in the comment section. And if you've heard any of these albums, let me know what you guys thought of them. And as usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you. And I'll see you guys next time. All right. Peace out, black.